One of the most interesting dynamics in competitive Pokemon has gotta be weather. There's a lot that goes into how these different weather styles play and are balanced in VGC, and especially for anyone looking to get into the game, it's pretty much a requirement that you at least have some understanding of how weather works. With Regulation G back though, weather is finally on top again, and with several different methods of utilizing it on very high-ranking teams, we need to break down how weather works so you can make sure that you're taking advantage of it as best as possible for your own success. If at any point in time you guys enjoy the video, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. I'm very close to hitting 1K, and it means the world, of course, if you guys were to just show that extra support. Also, let me know down below what your favorite type of weather is competitive, as I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But with that said, let's start off with sand. Now, sand is going to be pretty much the most one-dimensional of these weathers we're going to be talking about for a few different reasons. For one, there's not really any key benefits that are going to be on other teams outside of ones that maybe just have a ground, steel, or rock type that actually come from running sand. Which means that if you're running sand, you're the only player that's really actually taking advantage of it. This can definitely work in your favor, but at the same time though, this is for good reason, because sand is a really difficult playstyle to actually use. For starters, you get two different sand setters, being Hippowdon and Tyranitar, and I would highly recommend that you just ignore Hippowdon, unless if you're either a Masochist or Wolfie World Champ Difference Glick, because it's not really the best option. This is for a few different reasons, and the first one being, of course, that the pure ground typing isn't really going to be the best in this type of playstyle. With one of your best abusers of sand being Excadrill, you much prefer Tyranitar's typing, as it does help a lot with taking on different Pokemon that would otherwise maybe put on some good pressure into you. Especially things like fire types that might hit you for super effective and outpace you, or even just also using Tyranitar's Terra Flying, which can synergize really well with taking on opponents going for moves such as Earthquake or even fighting type attacks. Excadrill typically does take advantage of Tyranitar really well though, as a great option to kill through fairies as well as just opposing Pokemon in general due to its high attack and speed. And with a Clear Amulet moveset, you could probably make this Pokemon work to a degree. Now, I will say you do need the Jolly Max 252, as otherwise you don't actually outpace Booster Timid Fluttermane, which is rising back up again for Fluttermane mirrors on Koraidon teams. And you literally need to go max speed here just to make sure this actually activates. With the moveset of High Horsepower, Rock Slide, Iron Head, and Protect, you could technically actually make this Pokemon function, and it would have some decent means of handling options like the Calyrex forms and Miraidon. Not only this, but Tyranitar is actually a pretty decent option as a really strong check to Calyrex, and while I won't act like it's perfect, it definitely has a lot going for it. With your boosted Spinef with the sand up, as long as you keep at least your rock typing in the mix, as well as an option to run Assault Vest, which is a pretty good item in Tyranitar anyway, you can really take any sort of attack that Calyrex would throw at you. And with a moveset of Rock Slide, Knock Off, Terra Blast, Flying, or Grass, and then a coverage boost such as Low Kick or Ice Punch, Tyranitar is a pretty decent threat here. While I don't think either of these Pokemon have the most relevance here in VGC, I've seen a few sand teams that are featuring specifically Miraidon with Tyranitar and Excadrill when scouting for replays for shorts, so I can definitely say that at minimum, someone is also agreeing that this might be a good playstyle. Moving on to our other more situational weather, Snow at least has a few options if you are trying to feature it in Regulation G. Because of the fact that Ice matches up really well into most restricteds, an Ice Fam team featuring Alola Ninetales as well as one of the Kyurem forms or Calyrex Ice is a pretty terrifying option for your team. Most teams are typically building around strong physical walls or wide guard users for their snow checks, so Kyurem White can feature as a strong option to get around the physical walls, and Kyurem Black is a great way to avoid all these different wide guard Pokemon like Pelipper that otherwise would completely wall through your Calyrex Ice or Kyurem White spamming Blizzard. You could also definitely still commit to Ice Rider, as it is still the strongest Pokemon for an Ice typing for good reason, but it definitely at least isn't the only option that Alola Ninetales can partner with. Now, Ice Rider definitely is a really terrifying option with Alola Ninetales though, as Alola Ninetales can not only feature moves like Icy Wind in order to make sure that this is a little less trigger reliant, but it can also use Aurora Veil, which helps boost up your defenses even more. Especially considering that Alola Ninetales is an incredible setter of Aurora Veil, you can actually use this to your advantage as it makes Calyrex Ice Rider a lot less dependent on the snow for its defense boosts, meaning that you do have a lot of mileage that you can get out of just setting Veil and then turn 2 going for Terra here, as you'll be able to comfortably take hits and get up whatever you need. I would definitely feature other moves like Freeze Dry, Moonblast, and Encore to potentially help your Alola Ninetales, or you could just go with the standard Protect, as it does still get a lot of mileage out of this. With the Terragos typing and a Focus Sash, you can definitely use Alola Ninetales as a guaranteed means of getting up Veil, and even that one turn is probably enough for any of these restricted options to win a game. Overall though, Snow definitely has some merit in Regulation G, but I can't say that it's exactly a very easy team to use, and it's definitely a lot closer to a high risk, high reward sort of playstyle. Now we have a couple more interesting weather options to look at, starting off with Rain, which is arguably the most complex of the 4 different weathers. Now Rain has a few different things going for it in Regulation G that really do benefit it overall. For starters, Kyogre is one of the best restricted Pokemon that you could be using, and it is incredibly dominant in this format. For starters, Kyogre is an incredibly dominant restricted Pokemon already, and it can lean into strong water stabs such as Origin Pulse and Water Spout in order to shatter most neutral targets with Terra and a Helping Hand boost. Kyogre does fear one thing though, which is the incoming priority attacks, specifically from two of its best counterplay options being Rillaboom and Raging Bull. These two strongly rely on priority moves such as Grassy Glide and Thunderclap in order to make sure that Kyogre cannot deal a lot of damage with Water Spout. And to combat this, Kyogre's actually opted to lean away from the Terra Water typing and opt for a Terra Grass typing instead, which ensures that you'll have a resistance to both of these strong options. Now you can also definitely partner Kyogre with a Pokemon such as Ferrograph and Serena to avoid the priority and opt for a Terra Water typing instead, but I feel like this resistance to two of the only types that can hit you for super effective is still a pretty nice benefit. And this also has some other options that it helps with, such as Sporamungus. Now Kyogre has a lot of partners that it can provide immense benefit to, such as wall breakers like Landorus and Urshifu Rapid, or more defensive options like Archiludon and Wo-Chien that now take even less damage from incoming fire moves. But one of your greatest partners for Kyogre has got to be Tornadus. Tornadus provides you with an incredible option for priority Tailwind, making sure that this Water Spout with a Terra Water Kyogre is really difficult to take on. This makes sure that you can take on any of these Glass Cannon Pokemon that would otherwise try and revenge Kyogre, and with Tornadus also benefiting greatly from having the Rain Up for Bleak Wind Storm, this is a really terrifying dual stab, because with Kyogre's Water type stab and Tornadus' Flying type stab, very few Pokemon actually want to switch in on this, and most will drop to the combination of these two. If you want to still feature Rain without necessarily committing your entire team to it, then you're in luck. Pelipper is probably one of the strongest Rain setters in the game right now, and it might arguably even be better than the likes of Kyogre, Groudon, and Koraidon at setting weather. Pelipper has a few key benefits here that make it a really strong option, with the most obvious one being that it does not take every team's restricted spot. Because of the fact that Pelipper can still be ran alongside options like Calyrex Ice, Zacian, and Zamazenta in order to provide some immensely useful support, this means that your team overall will probably be a lot more potent than a team running Kyogre and relying on that for Rain. Rain's also really good because not only are these three really good options to take advantage of Pelipper's support with Wide Guard, as they do fear a lot of the other spread-focused restricted options, you can also help all three of these defensively by giving them a lot less of a reliance on Terra due to the fact you'll weaken incoming fire type attacks. One of the best partners for all three of these is also Urshifu Rapid Strike, and that only benefits even more from having Rain Up, because you're going to be boosting your Surging Strikes even further. And with Pelipper having options for like Helping Hand that can boost Urshifu's damage even more, Urshifu becomes a really top tier wall breaker here. If this wasn't enough, with Pelipper having a base 65 speed, this also makes sure that even if you lead Pelipper against teams that are leading Koraidon, Groudon, or Alola Ninetales, you'll be able to guarantee set Rain against them without any actual effort. If that wasn't enough, Pelipper can use not only its incredible defensive typing to check options like Koraidon and Zamazenta, but with the move Wide Guard, you can also sponge hits from Pokemon that would otherwise maybe deal some serious damage to you, such as Pelipper, Groudon, and the Calyrex forms. I think Pelipper is probably one of our only non-restricted weather setters that actually not only got better in this format, but could actually be a really strong contender for being viable at Worlds. So I would definitely keep an eye on this. Now I'm sure absolutely nobody expected that Sun would somehow still be at the top of the list, but trust me when I say that Sun somehow only got better. Despite the presence of Kyogre and Pelipper being very terrifying right now, Koraidon and Groudon still have found a place to make Sun very viable, and they're having insane success right now. Initially it was assumed that Groudon would probably be the stronger option of these two due to the fact that it's not overlapping with that Dragon typing with a lot of the Photosynthesis Pokemon, but it also having a really strong spread option with Precipice Blades was thought to be a really good pick here. Despite this though, Groudon has actually fallen out of favor because its Ground Stab in Precipice Blades is a lot less consistent than Koraidon Click and Collision Course, and if you wanted to run a move like Earthquake for more accuracy, you have to fear Rillaboom terrain. Koraidon definitely does what Groudon does, probably a bit safer. Koraidon also has a couple other key factors that do provide it with some pretty key significance in the current format. For starters, Koraidon has a far wider range of items that can take advantage of compared to Groudon, with the primary ones being Clear Amulet, Choice Band, Loaded Dice, and Assault Vest. Using one of those three offensive items that Koraidon has, it can either block Intimidate, boost your immediate damage output to shatter teams without Incineroar, or even lead to the options like Scale Shot, Loaded Dice sets, popping off and giving Koraidon a huge speed advantage against Pokemon such as Fluttermane and Koraidon. Meanwhile, Assault Vest Koraidon actually turns into a pretty incredible Kyogre check, allowing you with minor investment to either be 3-hit KO by Ice Beam, or if you have the Sun Up, even after a Terra Fire, you can even survive modest Choice Specs Water Spouts from Terra Water Kyogre, which is pretty incredible considering all you need is 12 HP and 36 SpDef for this. Koraidon also does a great job at boosting two of Kyogre's best checks, being Rillaboom and Raging Bull, which make Kyogre cry itself to sleep at night. Koraidon will definitely be a powerhouse in the current format, and there's certainly no shortages of partners that you can definitely utilize with this. While I think Groudon will be more regulated to a niche option, I think there's certainly some playstyles that it can benefit a bit more than Koraidon, such as the bulky, balanced sort of archetypes that can really benefit from options like Umbreon or other more slower options that don't really help Koraidon win a game quickly. But if you're looking to run a hyper offense, Koraidon is the Pokemon of choice. So what if I don't want to run weather on my team? Well, there's a few ways you could still mitigate the opponent's weather without necessarily needing to run it. For starters, a lot of common metagame Pokemon do apply serious pressure just by existing to a lot of common weather cores. Going back to Rillaboom and Raging Bull, these are two great examples that are pretty easy to slap on most teams right now, and they're an amazing way of combating options like Rain due to the fact that both Pokemon pressure Kyogre really well, but also Sun, since Raging Bolt takes great advantage of the sun being up, and Rillaboom usually forces Groudon to have to Terra. If you want to aim towards completely shutting down weather though, Rayquaza does a great job at neutralizing weather as long as it's on the field, and Terrapagos can completely erase all weather and terrain the turn that you go for your terrestrialization. If these don't suit your tastes though, you probably should just stick to outmaneuvering weather, since most teams won't really be able to justify the presence of a Cloud9, Golduck, or Altaria on them. But really, who knows what'll happen by Worlds. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did and want to see more content like this, of course, consider subscribing, as I upload tons of competitive Pokemon content on this channel every week. Also, if you want to go the extra mile, consider becoming a member. For just a few dollars a month, you do a great job at, of course, helping support the editors who help keep this channel alive, and it really does go a long way towards making the content you guys love to see. 100% of the money from the memberships and the super thanks goes to them. Also, shoutouts to our two editors. Kurt, who handles all the long form content and edited the video you guys are watching today. He does an incredible job and uploads a ton of competitive Pokemon content. And also we have our short form content editor, Becca, who does a ton of streaming on Twitch, which while I can't put in the upper right corner, at the very least you should check her out down below, as she's an incredible streamer. With that said, I will see you guys next week for another video. Until then, peace out, guys.